This is TLC to go.
All right, so we're diving into something today that might seem a little bit like just another thing to add to the to-do list,
Yeah.
especially for all the busy health sciences faculty out there. But I think this one's really worth it. It's all about teaching philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you hear them called teaching statements.
Right.
And we're going to be pulling from some great info from the UTHSC Teaching and Learning Center.
Yeah, it's a good resource.
Yeah, so why don't we jump right in?
Sounds good.
So what is this whole teaching philosophy thing? Because it sounds kind of, maybe a little intimidating or formal.
Yeah, it can sound a little like that, but really it's just a document that sort of spells out your core beliefs about teaching.
Okay.
And you know how you generally approach teaching.
Right.
So it's like the principles that are guiding you when you're in the classroom or you're working with students.
Okay.
And the UTHSC resource highlights a few key reasons why this is actually really useful. The first one is that it gives your students a really clear picture of what you prioritize in your teaching,
Right.
like what's important to you in their learning journey.
I like that it kind of sets the stage, right?
Right.
They know what to expect.
Exactly. So another big reason is that a lot of times, search committees for teaching positions, they'll actually want to see your teaching philosophy.
Oh,
It
interesting.
helps them understand, where you're coming from pedagogically.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And then I think probably most importantly for, your day-to-day work is that it's a really great tool for self-reflection.
Okay.
It really pushes you to think about what's working in your teaching and, where you might want to evolve as a teacher.
So it's not just this static document for a job application.
That's right.
It can actually help you grow.
Exactly.
Interesting. So how long does this thing have to be?
Well, that's the cool thing. It can be pretty flexible.
Okay.
Sometimes you might just need a quick overview, like a paragraph or two. Sometimes it might be several pages, if it's for a specific purpose. But the core purpose of, articulating those values and those teaching methods, that stays the same.
Okay. So we get what it is.
Right.
But the UTHSC resource really makes it clear that this isn't just a nice to have.
No.
This is actually a really useful strategy.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about that a little bit more.
Yeah. So they point out that, and they reference a 1998 piece by Chisholm in Essays on Teaching Excellence, that taking the time to really develop your teaching philosophy, it helps us as educators really think about our methods and how we can refine them. It's all about getting better at guiding our students' learning.
Right. So by writing it down, you can start to kind of see the patterns of what you do and how that actually impacts the students.
That's exactly right. And you can also, through this process, you can also identify areas for your own professional development.
That's a good point.
Like maybe you realize you want to incorporate more simulation-based learning in your health sciences courses. Right.
Or new ways to assess clinical skills or something.
Exactly. Your teaching philosophy can be sort of a roadmap for that growth.
Okay. I love it. But now I'm sitting down with a blank page and I'm like, okay,
Right.
where do I even begin with this whole thing?
Yeah, it can be a little daunting to stare at a blank page, but the UTHSC resource has some really helpful starting points that they get from a 2017 article by Bown in the Journal of Effective Teaching. And these are kind of framed as core reflective questions to get you thinking.
I like that.
So the first one, and this is the most fundamental one, is why do I teach?
Yeah.
What's that driving force behind what you do?
Yeah.
What are your core beliefs about the role of education?
Right. Especially for healthcare professionals.
Especially in preparing those future healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So good. What's number 2?
So question number 2 is, how do I teach?
Okay.
This is where you get into the nitty-gritty of your actual teaching methods. So you think about what strategies are you using in the classroom or the lab or the clinical setting? What kind of learning experiences are you designing?
Are you a big case studies person or a team-based learning person?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about those practical approaches that you're taking.
So if you use a lot of problem-based learning in your med school courses, or if you emphasize patient simulation and nursing, that kind of thing, this is where you talk about it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then the third really essential question is, how do I measure my teaching? How do you know if your teaching is actually making a difference?
Okay. Yeah.
What evidence do you look at to gauge your effectiveness?
So student feedback, obviously, but also things like, how they're performing on their clinical exams.
Right.
Or how well they can apply what they've learned to real-world scenarios.
Exactly. By considering these three core questions, you're already building a really strong foundation for articulating your teaching philosophy.
Love it. Okay, so we've asked the questions, but the UTHSC resource goes even further. It gives us some really practical tips for actually putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, whatever it is these days.
Right.
So let's talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
So tip number 1 is understand the process.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, it really means recognizing that this isn't something you're probably going to just dash off in 5 minutes.
Right, it takes some time.
Yeah, it takes thoughtful consideration. You might go through a few drafts before you really feel like it reflects your approach.
Yeah, I think that's important to know that it's a process. You don't have to get it perfect the first time.
Exactly.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so tip number 2, identify core goals.
Yes.
Now, for someone in health education, how specific should these goals be?
So they suggest that you really try to pinpoint 2 to 3 main teaching goals.
Okay.
And the really crucial part here is to frame them within the context of health education. So for example, instead of having like a generic goal like promote learning, you might have a goal like develop students' abilities to critically evaluate medical literature.
Right, or, foster interprofessional collaboration skills.
Exactly.
Essential for patient care.
Yeah, that's so much more powerful.
Yeah, that's like, what are the specific things
Yes.
you want these future healthcare leaders to have?
Exactly.
Okay, this next tip is where things get really tangible. It's use concrete examples.
Yeah.
Tell me why this one's so important.
This is where your philosophy moves from those abstract statements to what you actually do in the real world.
Uh-huh.
So the UTHSC resource really emphasizes that you need to illustrate those goals with specific examples from your teaching.
Okay.
Describe particular activities, unique assignments. You might even describe how you handle challenging situations in the classroom.
I like that.
For instance, if one of your goals is to develop critical thinking, you might describe a specific case study analysis that you use with your students and how you guide them through it.
It just paints such a clearer picture than just saying, I value critical thinking.
Exactly.
Okay, tip number 4. It's all about style here. Write in first person with reflection.
Yeah, this is about making your teaching philosophy really personal and authentic.
Okay,
So using I statements helps convey your individual voice and approach.
gotcha.
And the resource also suggests that you incorporate some reflective elements in there, maybe even mentioning how your teaching has evolved over time or areas where you're still looking to grow.
It shows that you're still learning too.
Exactly. It shows commitment to continuous improvement.
And I think that honesty makes your teaching philosophy even stronger.
Absolutely.
Okay, last but not least, tip number 5 is share successes and metrics.
Yes.
How do we do that without just sounding like we're bragging?
Well, it's about demonstrating the impact of your teaching in a really meaningful way.
Mm.
So you want to include examples of how you've actually seen those teaching goals be realized in your students. And importantly, you want to back those examples up with evidence.
Got it.
The UTHSC resource gives some great ideas. They mention things like referencing positive feedback that you've gotten from students,
Right.
or showing improvements in their performance data,
Uh-huh.
or even highlighting, your own participation in professional development activities that have informed your teaching practice.
That's not just what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I've actually had some success doing these things.
Exactly.
Very cool. Okay, so all of that is awesome and super helpful.
Yeah.
But if folks want to go even deeper, the UTHSC resource points to a few additional resources too.
They do. They have a really cool teaching philosophy infographic from their own Teaching and Learning Center,
Okay.
which I think is a nice visual overview.
Love it.
And then they also recommend this piece called Writing Your Teaching Philosophy from the Center for Educational Innovation at the University of Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
And then Faculty Focus, which is a publication by Magna Publications, also has some great insights about writing these statements.
Awesome. So lots of places to go for more guidance and to see some good examples.
Absolutely.
And of course, if anyone at UTHSC has questions or just wants some one-on-one help, they can always reach out to the Teaching and Learning Center directly. So all in all, this whole teaching philosophy thing, it's not just an academic exercise.
No.
It seems like it can really make a difference for health sciences faculty.
I think so. It's a chance for some really meaningful self-reflection that can directly lead to refining your teaching methods
Wow.
and ultimately enhancing your effectiveness with students.
And it's a great tool to have on hand,
Yeah.
if you're looking to grow professionally or even move up in your career. So on that note, I'm going to leave you with a final thought to ponder. As you're thinking about your own teaching practices and the future of health sciences education, What are the core principles that you're going to hold on to as you're guiding and inspiring this next generation of healthcare leaders?
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
But it's definitely worth exploring.
I think so too. So go forth and start crafting or revisiting your teaching philosophy. And thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Thanks, everyone.